My name is James Harrison, and until 2 years ago, I was what most people would call a successful man, at least by society's standards. I owned one of the largest construction companies in the Pacific Northwest, had 3 homes, drove expensive cars, and basically lived what many would consider the American dream. But looking back now, I realize I was spiritually bankrupt, though I wouldn't have admitted it then. You see, I built my company from scratch. Started as a carpenter's apprentice at 19, worked my way up through the ranks, saved every penny I could, and by 30, I had my own small contracting business. 15 years of relentless work later, Harrison Construction employed over 200 people and handled projects worth millions. I was proud of what I'd accomplished, maybe too proud. My motto was always prayer without action is wishful thinking. I used to say this to justify my complete focus on work, on doing, on achieving. Don't get me wrong. I wasn't against religion or spirituality. I just thought I didn't have time for it. My ex-wife Maria used to drag me to church on Christmas and Easter, but that was about it. I'd sit there, checking emails on my phone, thinking about all the real work I could be doing instead. The irony doesn't escape me now. How I used to mock what I saw as empty prayers while my own life was nothing but empty actions. I had 2 teenage kids I barely knew, a marriage that had crumbled under the weight of my absence, and a soul that was running on fumes. But I was too busy succeeding to notice I was failing at what really mattered. Every morning, I'd be at the office by 6, coffee in hand, reviewing projects and putting out fires. Every evening, I'd leave well after dark, missing another family dinner, another school event, another chance to be present for the people who needed me. I justified it all in the name of providing for my family, building a legacy, securing our future. The truth is, I was addicted to the chase, to the next big project, to the rush of closing another deal. That all changed on October 15, 2022. It was a typical Seattle autumn day. Overcast, drizzling, the kind of weather we're famous for. I was doing a site inspection at our biggest project yet, a 30-story commercial tower downtown. This was the project that would put Harrison Construction on the national map. I remember checking my watch, thinking I needed to hurry if I wanted to make it to my daughter's volleyball game. It would have been the first one I attended all season, and I'd promised her I'd be there. I was on the 20th floor, walking along the edge of the building with my site manager, Mike. We were discussing some issues with the steel frame installation when I heard it, a sound no construction veteran ever wants to hear. It was a deep, metallic groan, followed by the sharp ping of cable snapping. I looked up just in time to see the steel beam swinging down toward us. Looking back, those next few seconds played out like a slow-motion sequence in a movie. I remember pushing Mike out of the way. I remember the cold rush of wind as I tried to jump clear myself. I remember thinking, Sarah's game starts at 4, then everything went black. The next thing I knew, I was floating near the ceiling, looking down at my own body. It's strange how calm I felt in that moment. Below me was chaos, workers shouting, running, calling for help. My body lay crumpled beneath 2 steel beams, blood pooling around me. But up there, watching it all unfold, I felt completely at peace. I could hear everything with perfect clarity. Someone was calling 911. Mike was kneeling beside my body, repeating, "Stay with us, James, stay with us," over and over. A young carpenter was praying in Spanish. I wanted to tell them I was fine, that somehow, impossibly, I felt better than I had in years. I watched as the paramedics arrived, as they worked frantically to stabilize me, as they lifted me onto a stretcher and rushed me to the elevator. I followed, not by choice but as if drawn by an invisible thread connected to my physical form. In the ambulance, I hovered near the ceiling, watching the EMTs work. One of them was performing CPR, another setting up a blood transfusion. They kept losing my pulse and getting it back. Multiple crush injuries, internal bleeding, BP dropping. Their voices seemed to come from far away now. I was becoming aware of something else, something beyond the physical scene playing out below. It felt like there was another reality just beyond a thin veil, and I was being gently pulled toward it. The last thing I heard from the physical world was the flatline tone of the heart monitor. One of the EMTs called out, "We're losing him," but I was already gone, moving through what I can only describe as a tunnel of darkness. Not a frightening darkness, though. It was more like being enveloped in a warm, velvet blanket. In that darkness, I began to experience something profound. All my life, I'd been driven by noise, the constant chatter of phones and meetings, the endless demands of running a business, the perpetual motion of doing. But in that void, I encountered true silence for the first time. It was in this silence that I began to hear what I'd been drowning out all my life. At first, it was overwhelming. In that darkness, with all external distractions stripped away, I began to feel the weight of every choice I'd ever made. Every missed birthday, every canceled vacation, every time I'd chosen work over family, it all came rushing back. But it wasn't just the big moments. I became acutely aware of smaller things too. The disappointed look in my son's eyes when I missed his science fair, the gradual fading of my wife's smile over the years, the way my employees would tense up when I walked into a room. The darkness seemed to strip away all the justifications I'd built up over the years. There was nowhere to hide from myself anymore. No meetings to rush to, no phones to answer, no projects to oversee. Just me and the growing realization of how far I'd strayed from what truly mattered. But here's the thing about that darkness. It wasn't judgmental. It felt more like a gentle teacher, showing me truths I'd been too busy to see. As I floated there, I began to understand that this void wasn't empty at all. It was filled with something I'd spent my whole life running from, the presence of my own soul. Time had no meaning in that space. Could have been seconds or centuries. I honestly couldn't tell. But gradually, I became aware of something else, something beyond the darkness. At first, it was just a pinprick of light, so faint I thought I was imagining it. But it grew stronger, calling to me in a way I can't quite explain. The light didn't hurt my eyes like you might expect. Instead, it felt like I was seeing light for the first time, not physical light, but something purer, more fundamental. As it grew stronger, I felt something I hadn't experienced since I was a small child. A complete absence of fear, a sense of being fully known and fully loved. That light began to pull me forward, not forcefully, but with the gentle inevitability of a river flowing to the sea. As I moved toward it, I felt layers of myself falling away. All the masks I wore, all the roles I played, all the barriers I'd built up over the years. The ambitious businessman, the stern boss, the absent father, these identities began to dissolve in that light, revealing something more fundamental beneath them all. I was about to discover that everything I thought I knew about prayer, about success, about what matters in life was about to be transformed. But more importantly, I was about to learn that the man I'd spent 45 years becoming was just a shadow of who I was meant to be. The light grew stronger, and suddenly I felt a presence. Not something I could see with eyes, but something I knew with my entire being. In that moment, I understood what people mean when they say they've encountered the divine. Jesus was there with me, though not in the way I'd always imagined from those few church services I'd attended. He didn't appear as the stern figure from stained glass windows or the gentle shepherd from Sunday school books. Instead, he was pure love embodied, a presence so profound it made everything I'd ever known feel shallow in comparison. The love radiating from him was unlike anything I'd experienced, completely unconditional, all-encompassing, and more real than anything I'd ever touched or built. What happened next is hard to describe in human language. Jesus didn't speak to me in words exactly. It was more like pure understanding flowing directly into my consciousness. He showed me my life, but not as a simple replay of events. Instead, I saw the ripple effects of every action, every decision, every moment I'd lived through. I saw the young carpenter I'd fired 5 years ago over a minor mistake. But this time I saw how that decision affected not just him, but his family, how his daughter had to drop out of college because they couldn't afford tuition anymore, how his wife had to take 2 jobs to make ends meet. I saw how my harsh words had crushed his spirit, making him doubt himself in ways that affected every job he took afterward. Then Jesus showed me something that broke my heart. He showed me all the prayers that had been offered for me over the years. I saw Maria, kneeling by our bed night after night, praying for me to find peace, to reconnect with our family. I saw my mother, before she passed, lighting candles in church, asking God to help her son remember what really mattered in life. I even saw some of my employees, praying for me to become a more compassionate leader. All these prayers had been like seeds, waiting for fertile soil, but I had paved over my heart with ambition and pride, leaving no room for them to grow. Jesus helped me understand that prayer isn't just about words spoken to heaven. It's about creating space in our lives for love to take root and flourish. He showed me moments when I'd unconsciously blocked blessings that were trying to reach me. Times when an employee wanted to share a personal struggle, but I was too busy checking my phone. Moments when my children tried to connect with me, but I was too preoccupied with work problems. Each of these had been an opportunity for divine love to flow through me, but I'd been too blind to see it. Then Jesus shared 3 profound truths with me. The first was about the nature of prayer itself. He showed me that every action we take is a form of prayer, every word we speak, every decision we make, every way we treat others. I saw that while I'd been dismissing traditional prayer as a waste of time, my own actions had been prayers too, prayers of worship to false gods of success and material wealth. The second truth was about love and its relationship to prayer. Jesus showed me that love isn't just an emotion or a choice. It's the fundamental energy of the universe. Every act of genuine love is a prayer that aligns us with this divine energy. When we choose love, in our words, our actions, our business decisions, our family lives, we're participating in the highest form of prayer possible. The third truth was the most challenging for me to accept. Jesus showed me that everything I'd achieved in life, my business success, my wealth, my reputation, meant nothing compared to the simple acts of love I'd neglected. A sincere hug given to my crying daughter would have been worth more than all the buildings I'd ever constructed. A moment of compassion shown to a struggling employee would have built something far more lasting than any skyscraper. These revelations hit me with the force of those steel beams that had struck my physical body. I saw myself as I truly was, not a successful businessman, but a spiritually impoverished soul who had spent his life gathering treasures that had no eternal value. But even in this moment of profound realization, the love emanating from Jesus never wavered. There was no condemnation, only an invitation to understand and grow. He showed me that it wasn't too late to change, to begin living a life where my actions aligned with divine love. As these truths settled into my soul, I felt a gentle tug back toward my physical body. Part of me wanted to stay in that overwhelming presence of love, but I understood that I was being given a second chance. A chance to live what I had learned, to transform my understanding into action. The return to my body was nothing like the gentle transition I'd experienced leaving it. It was like being slammed into a wall of pain and sensation. Every nerve ending screamed. Every cell felt like it was on fire. The first thing I heard was a nurse saying, "He's back. Get the doctor." The next few weeks were a blur of surgeries, pain medication, and physical therapy. I had suffered massive internal injuries, multiple broken bones, and severe trauma. The doctors called my survival a miracle, especially given that my heart had stopped for over 6 minutes. They warned me that recovery would be a long, challenging process. But lying in that hospital bed, I found myself filled with a gratitude I'd never known before. Each breath, even though painful, felt like a gift. Each moment, even the difficult ones, held new meaning. The physical pain was intense, but it felt insignificant compared to the spiritual awakening I'd experienced. My family's reaction to my changed personality was initially one of confusion and skepticism. Maria, who had divorced me 2 years earlier, couldn't understand why I kept apologizing for things that had happened years ago. My children were wary of my attempts to connect, hardened by years of disappointment. My business partners were concerned about my talk of restructuring the company to prioritize people over profits. The hardest part wasn't the physical recovery. It was trying to explain what had happened to me. How do you tell your board of directors that Jesus showed you that your business model was spiritually bankrupt? How do you explain to your teenage kids that a near-death experience taught you the true meaning of love and presence? How do you convince your ex-wife that you've genuinely changed when she's heard all your promises before? Recovery gave me something I'd never given myself before: time to reflect. In the quiet hours between physical therapy sessions and doctor visits, I began to understand how to integrate what I'd learned into my daily life. I started with small things, really listening to the nurses who cared for me, showing genuine interest in their lives. I learned their names, their stories, their struggles. Each interaction became an opportunity to practice what Jesus had shown me, that every moment is a chance to embody prayer through action. I also began to see my hospital stay as a gift, forced stillness that allowed me to begin repairing relationships. My children visited daily, and instead of trying to fill the silence with promises or explanations, I simply listened. I heard their pain, their anger, their disappointment. Each conversation was a form of prayer, each moment of genuine connection a step toward healing. When I was finally released from the hospital, I knew that my real journey was just beginning. I had experienced something profound, but the true test would be living it out in the everyday world. Could I maintain this new understanding while dealing with business pressures, family dynamics, and the countless challenges of daily life? The transformation of Harrison Construction began with a company-wide meeting that left my board of directors stunned. I announced major changes: implementing profit sharing for all employees, establishing a fund for employees' children's education, and requiring that 10% of our profits go to community housing projects. Some board members thought I'd lost my mind along with my near brush with death. Others suggested I needed more time to recover before making such drastic decisions. But I stood firm. For years, I told them, we've built structures while tearing down people. That ends today. I shared how each project would now require a community impact assessment, not just an environmental one. We would prioritize local hiring, apprenticeship programs, and sustainable practices, even if it meant lower profit margins. The changes weren't just about policies, though. I started showing up at construction sites differently. Instead of quick inspections focused on timelines and budgets, I spent time with our workers. I learned about Jose's sick mother in Mexico and helped arrange for her medical care. I discovered that Mike's daughter was a gifted artist and sponsored her art school tuition. When Tom's wife passed away, I didn't just send flowers. I sat with him through his grief, sharing my own experiences with mortality. These weren't just acts of charity. They were prayers in action, exactly as Jesus had shown me. Each time we chose people over profits, each moment we prioritized humanity over efficiency, we were engaging in a form of worship more meaningful than any I'd known before. The transformation wasn't smooth. We lost some clients who didn't appreciate our new, more deliberate approach. Several board members resigned in protest. Our profit margins initially dropped, and industry analysts predicted our downfall. But something unexpected happened. Our workforce became more dedicated, more innovative, more collaborative. Projects were completed not just on time but with unprecedented quality because our workers now felt personally invested in their success. At home, the changes were even more profound. I sold our mansion and moved into a modest house closer to my children's schools. The first few family dinners were awkward, filled with suspicious glances and guarded conversations. My daughter Sarah would check her phone constantly, not believing I'd actually stay through an entire meal. My son Michael would answer in monosyllables. Waiting for me to reveal this was all temporary. But I kept showing up, not just for dinners, but for everyday moments. I attended Michael's baseball games, sitting quietly in the stands, learning to be a presence without demanding attention. I drove Sarah to volleyball practice, letting her control the conversation, never pushing for more than she was ready to give. When she finally opened up about her college dreams, I listened without trying to direct or control. Maria and I started having coffee once a week. Not to reconcile that ship had sailed, but to learn how to be better co-parents. She was understandably skeptical of my transformation. Near-death experiences fade, she warned me, but patterns usually don't. I accepted her doubts while continuing to demonstrate consistency in my changes. The real test came during the recession of 2023. Construction projects dried up, and we faced difficult decisions. The old James would have immediately started layoffs to protect the bottom line. Instead, we gathered all employees and openly discussed our situation. Together, we decided that everyone, from me to our newest hire, would take a pay cut to avoid laying off anyone. We used our education fund to provide additional training during the downturn, preparing our workforce for future opportunities. During this challenging period, I experienced something remarkable: joy in the midst of struggle. While our profits were down, I witnessed our company community growing stronger. Employees shared rides to save gas, organized food banks for struggling families, and volunteered their skills to help those in need. Every crisis became an opportunity to demonstrate what Jesus had shown me, that love expressed through action is the highest form of prayer. My personal practices evolved too. Each morning began with an hour of silence, not formal meditation, but a time to center myself in that divine love I'd experienced. I kept a journal, not of business plans but of opportunities to serve others. Each evening, I reviewed my day, not counting profits but moments of genuine connection. The most unexpected change was in how I handled stress. Instead of reaching for my phone or diving into work, I learned to pause and ask myself, how can this moment become a prayer? Sometimes that meant taking a walk with an anxious employee. Other times it meant sitting with my own discomfort, allowing it to teach me patience and trust. Word of our company's transformation spread. Other businesses began asking about our model. I was invited to speak at conferences not about construction techniques, but about conscious capitalism and spiritual leadership. I always began these talks by sharing my near-death experience, even though it made some uncomfortable. The choice is simple, I would tell them. We can build our businesses on the foundation of love, or we can build them on sand. Today, 2 years after my experience, I'm still learning and growing. Our company's definition of success has completely changed. We measure it not in dollars but in lives touched, communities strengthened, and relationships healed. Our projects take longer to complete because we prioritize human concerns over mechanical efficiency, but they're better for it. My relationship with my children has deepened in ways I never thought possible. Last month, Michael asked me to mentor his school's entrepreneurship club. Not to teach them about business, he said, but to show them there's a different way to measure success. Sarah and I have started volunteering together at a local women's shelter, building homes for families in need. These moments are my new wealth, worth more than any contract I've ever signed. I still face challenges. Some days, the pull of old habits is strong. The construction industry hasn't changed just because I have, and we constantly navigate tensions between profit and purpose. But now I understand that these challenges are opportunities for prayer and action, chances to demonstrate that love is the most practical business strategy there is. As I conclude this sharing of my journey, I want to emphasize something crucial. You don't need a near-death experience to understand these truths. Every moment offers an opportunity to choose love, to turn our actions into prayers, to build something more lasting than steel and concrete. Whether you're a CEO or a carpenter, a parent or a student, you have countless chances each day to align your actions with divine love. My encounter with Jesus showed me that prayer isn't about words whispered in desperate moments. It's about how we live every moment. It's about the choices we make when profits compete with people, when efficiency conflicts with compassion, when fear challenges love. Each day we're building something whether we realize it or not. The question is, what are we building, and will it last beyond our time here? If this message resonates with you, please share it with others. Like and subscribe to help spread this understanding that true prayer is lived, not just spoken. Together, we can build a world where business becomes a force for love, where success is measured in lives touched, and where every action becomes a prayer. Remember, it's not enough to just pray. We must become the prayer.